to Touchgrass Gardening. Today we're going to talk about 8 fruit trees that I didn't know that I could grow in the desert. I moved here to Phoenix, Arizona 4 years ago, and I've gotten fruit from all of these trees in such a short amount of time, and I want to share them with you so you can plant them in your yard. But first, if you like to grow exotic and fun trees, and you also live in a harsh environment, or you want to watch someone who does, please hit that subscribe button below. Now let's dive into the trees. I'm going to have easy trees to start with, and as we go, we're going to get to the harder trees to take care of. So the easiest tree to take care of, you're going to get fruit right away from, is the pomegranate. And this is one that I didn't know that you could just put in the ground in Arizona in full sun, only give it water once a week, and it would give you a ton of fruit. And a lot of people that come to my yard, they're like, "Oh, you grow pomegranate?" And I think in the gardener community, it's pretty well known that it's an easy and great tree, but a lot of people don't know. In Arizona or any desert, you can grow pomegranate and very easily get fruit with minimal care. This is a 3-year-old pomegranate, and you can see it's already taller than I am. And every year we get at least a dozen fruits. Each year it's more. And the great thing about this tree is you can shape it into be whatever you want. Like I have it as a bush. Some people turn it into a tree. Some people put a trellis, and they have trellises with pomegranate. So it's an incredibly versatile tree that grows extremely well. I planted 2 more varieties just last year, so I now have 3. And I just love this tree. I have a wonderful, a deserty, and a parfianca, which I think are 3 of the best tasting pomegranates. The next tree I want to talk about is guava. And what's next to me is a Mexican cream guava. I put this in a year ago, and within a few months, it already had fruit on it. So we had a few guavas just this last year. Super easy tree, quite vigorous. And the only thing you might want to think about is giving it a little bit of afternoon shade or filtered sun, because the tree itself can take the sun, but the fruit does tend to get sunburned if it's in full sun area. Now I want to talk about another kind of guava as well, which is a pineapple guava. And these are not the same as your tropical guavas like a Mexican cream. This pineapple guava here is about 2 years old. It's blooming right now and has a lot of new growth. The reason it's a little bit harder than a lot of other guavas is that it will get fried in our afternoon sun in Arizona. So you really want to give this afternoon shade, otherwise you'll lose your pineapple guava. This is a really cool tree because you can also eat the flower petals, and they're delicious. And it's a pretty easy tree because you don't have to think about the winter at all. It loves the cold. So 2 types of guava that I think you can get fruit from right away. So the next plant I want to talk about is passion fruit. It's a vine. So I have it crawling on this fence here, and it just adds like a lush green evergreen throughout the year. It just looks pretty good. Now you can see there's some dead leaves in the back. You kind of have to pull those out by hand, but we get fruit off this tree. So every year there's just amazing, beautiful passion fruit flowers, and we by hand pollinate them. So we use like a little makeup brush and pollinate them between the 2 flowers that are nearest to each other, and we get fruit. And it's a pretty easy vine to take care of. I would just say that it does better if around where the root ball is, it has a little bit of shade. It can take full sun, but I really think that it does better if it has a little bit of afternoon shade, and you'll get fruit better that way. It's a balance because it needs the sun to fruit, but it'll also get burned up if you put it in just full sun. So passion fruit is a great vine if you're thinking about both beauty and getting some fruit. So next to me is a Loquat, a golden nugget variety. So it's a grafted variety. And every year this is just full of fruit. Even when it was just a few feet tall, it had these big bunches of fruit. And these are delicious. And it's a tree that you would not really think can grow well in a desert, but it does, as long as you just give it enough shade in its first few years to survive, and then give it a lot of water. It's actually a very easy tree if you just follow those two simple rules. The other thing you want to think about is, once these start to turn just a little bit yellow, you're going to want to put a bag over it to keep the birds away, because I've never seen a fruit that birds love quite so much as this loquat. And I would just say this is one of the most beautiful trees in my yard. The leaf structure, you can see we got some hail damage here from a few weeks ago, but just these big, long, lush looking tropical leaves makes loquat one of my favorite trees in my yard. If you want more information about loquat, we made a deep dive video on the fruit, the tree, last year. I'll link it above, and you can see what my reaction is when I taste it and what the tree looks like when the fruit are ripe. Now the next tree I want to talk about is Starfruit. And this is one that I just think of as a very tropical fruit, but it grows quite well in the desert, and it just puts on a ton of fruit. You can see this video above that we did at my neighbor's Starfruit tree, where he just has hundreds of fruit every year. Now this is a 2-year-old tree that I put in the ground. At this time of the year, it loses a lot of leaves, and then it puts on a lot of new growth. And it's really pretty new growth. It's this red, purplish color, and it's just a very beautiful, exotic, and interesting looking tree. The thing you want to think about is give it some afternoon shade in the summer, and then in the winter, you're going to want to put a frost cloth over it, because those two things will damage it. But other than that, it's not that hard of a tree, and it'll give you a ton of fruit, and they're delicious. The next tree I want to talk about is Longan, or Longan, which means dragon's eye in Chinese. It's just one of the most beautiful and actually prolific fruiters in my yard. So even this small tree had bunches of fruit last year that we were able to eat, and they were good, even from a very young tree. This is a Kohala variety, which is known as the most vigorous variety of Longan, but I just really love this fruit. It's now my favorite fruit, actually, and I want to start planting more Longan trees in my yard because I just love this tree so much. It's a little bit on the harder side of my list because it does want afternoon shade in the summer, and then you also want to put a frost cloth over it in the winter, especially if you live in zone 9B like I do. If you're in 10A, don't worry about it. But 9B, it really does need a little bit of extra love in the winter, but it's also resilient. So if it dies back a little bit, the parts that are alive, they'll start putting on new growth in the spring. So there's just so many reasons I just really love this Longan tree. Now as we go up the difficulty chain, I want to talk about mango, which is actually a great fruiter in deserts if you give it enough water. And this tree is quite resilient as long as it doesn't get a ton of winter damage. So the biggest threat to this tree is a hard freeze. And where I live outside of the city of Phoenix, we get a hard freeze every year. So I put a kind of mini greenhouse around this and provide a heat source. Otherwise, these trees die. That's why it's higher on my difficulty list. But if you live in zone 10A, 10B, you don't get super hard freezes. Like, this is an awesome tree. I will just say in 9B, it's a lot of work. It can take full sun. I have mine in full sun. If I was to redo it again, I'd probably put them in slightly afternoon shade, because the tree itself, kind of like guava, the tree itself can take the sun here, but the fruit tends to get sunburned and drop if we start to get to those 110 plus Fahrenheit days. And that's really why you might want to provide a little bit of afternoon shade for a mango. But otherwise, it's just so cool that you can grow your own mangoes in your backyard, And I will say that if you can find a variety of mango that you love, if you go to a mango tasting, we have an entire video about how to pick the right fruit variety in your yard that you can see above. But we went to a mango tasting event, checked off the 3 varieties that we liked the most, and then went to a nursery and got those varieties of mango and put them in our yard. So these Karen Michelle, Super Alfonso, and Mahashinook, they taste so much better than a grocery bought mango, and you can grow it right in your backyard, even in a harsh environment. So the last tree I want to talk about, and the highest difficulty tree that still fruits where I live, is the lychee. And this is a Mauritius lychee, and every year we get these blooms and it starts to put on fruit. And usually it drops it. And last year it almost made it to full maturity of the fruit. And I think I know what I need to do now, just give it more consistent water. But even without the fruit, this is one of the most beautiful trees in my yard. I love the new growth on this tree. The blooms are beautiful. It's just so lush and tropical looking. I bought this tree as kind of a larger tree. It was, I think, a 25-gallon tree. So it was about 3.5 feet tall when I bought it. And it's tripled in size from 3 years ago. So once it gets its roots established, even in our native clay soil, it can grow. And that's kind of the thing that surprised me about lychee. I did amend the hole pretty big, but by this time, and with how far spread out the branches are, I can certainly guarantee that its roots are in our native soil. So if you're really looking for a challenge, if you're watching this channel, you probably do look for challenges in gardening because that's part of what makes it fun. I really think you should try a lychee tree. And the main thing is it really wants all day filtered sun, maybe a little bit of morning sun, but don't let it get blasted in the afternoon, it'll die. And then in the winter, I put a frost cloth over it because even when I did have a frost cloth this past year, it got a little bit of damage, so some parts of the tree died a little bit. But then in the spring, it comes right back. So it's actually a pretty vigorous grower in its native environment, and that characteristic of it also comes through even in a desert environment like Phoenix, Arizona. So I really think you should try a lychee tree. I know it's one of those where if you buy it, you kind of think to yourself, if I kill it, it's okay, because I'm trying something new. But I just want to show that you can do it. It is possible, and it really makes gardening fun and exciting when you have something like this in your backyard. So there's a lot of fruit trees that I didn't talk about today. And I really wanted to focus on the trees that consistently give me fruit and ones that will give fruit within just a couple years of putting them in the ground. For instance, this avocado behind me, I grew it from seed, but it hasn't given me fruit yet. I still think it's a super beautiful tree. And we talk a lot about these trees that don't consistently fruit all the time in a desert, but are still beautiful in your yard. So if you like those kind of videos, please first like this video and then subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you again next time.
There's something in the air and a sparkly shimmer on our skin.